Communication or communicating is passing information to someone else in an attempt to create a shared understanding. This passing of information can be done two ways, verbally or non-verbally. Verbal communication is done through talking, just like I'm doing now with you, or through the act of writing. Non-verbal communicating is done through body language, which is the use of facial expressions and body movements. Communicating is also formal or informal. Formal communication is very official and straightforward. This type of communicating is what would probably take place in the military, where things are much more structured. Informal communication is very casual. It is the type of interaction that would take place between your friends or family. Communication takes place in all parts of our society and around the world, in our home, at our job, in our schools. We communicate in order to share information, knowledge, express our feelings, exchange ideas, be entertained, and make decisions. How we communicate is determined by our culture, experiences, attitudes, and beliefs. Our culture and background shape how we view, hear, and understand the world and others around us. So what does this mean to you as a foreign student taking courses in the United States for the first time? It means you will need to be more prepared for the cultural communication differences you will face in a U.S. classroom and on campus. Your own cultural background affects your attitudes, beliefs, and values about education, how classes should be taught, and how you interact and communicate with your teacher and fellow students. You will need to become more aware and increase your understanding of these cultural differences so you can adjust quickly and easily to your new learning environment. U.S. classrooms are typically informal, very interactive and relaxed places of learning. Instructors and students often call each other by their first names. Students interrupt during lectures to ask questions and express opinions. Talking and having a noisy classroom is considered a sign that successful learning is taking place and that students are actively involved with course materials. U.S. students, especially at the college level, expect instructors to be very approachable, available for questions, and responsive to helping them in and out of the classroom. They expect instructors to fully explain course materials, course requirements, and their grades. They expect to be interactive with both the instructor and fellow students. They firmly believe any mistake should be treated as the normal process of learning. It is important to remember, as you sit in a U.S. classroom, that students in the United States have grown up in a culture that allows them to be more comfortable in taking charge of their education and to be more independent. They grew up with the understanding that instructors will verbally lecture to them and are free to challenge a teacher's understanding of those materials. These communication and interactive practices may be against what you believe should be normal behavior in a classroom. In your culture, sitting and listening to the instructor with little or no interaction may be considered very normal. In your culture, copying the instructor's entire lecture from a blackboard may be expected. In your culture, the act of talking in class or asking the instructor questions may be considered as disrespectful, and that perhaps making a mistake is indeed considered shameful. These differences in interacting and communicating is just another form of culture shock you must adjust to in order to be a successful U.S. student. As we have seen from other presentations, every foreign student goes through various stages of shock, from missing their family, adjusting to college life, and various other cultural differences. This culture shock typically will be at its worst during the first few weeks of school, then lessened by the end of the semester, and almost disappear after the first year. In this first year of school, as a foreign student, you are basically adjusting to and finally accepting your new cultural surroundings and all the differences that come with it, such as enjoying the food, habits, and customs. The following are 10 suggestions and tips to help ease the cultural communication shock you may experience during your first semester of U.S.-based classes. Keep in mind, though, you will pick up a lot of U.S. communication and interaction skills as you continue to go to school each day, watch, listen, and interact with your fellow students and instructor. The most important tip of all is the understanding that everything you are experiencing now is a cultural change, and it will take time to get comfortable with your new surroundings, behaviors, and beliefs. If you have a question you want to ask, it helps to write it down first. This will help you better understand what you want to say before you say it. If you would like to give an opinion to the class, use simple words to express your views. Again, use the strategy to write it down first and then read what you wrote to the class or instructor. Never assume what you say is not important or worthwhile. You need to stay confident in yourself. This is a skill every student, foreign or domestic, needs to work on. Make sure you understand what the instructor or fellow student is asking you by repeating back to them the question they asked first, and then give your answer. This will go a long way to avoiding any misunderstandings. Not understanding something in the course isn't considered shameful. Instructors respect students who work hard to understand the material. So if you are misunderstanding anything in the course or something from a lecture or lab, ask to make an appointment with the instructor during their office hours and discuss it. Take notes and write things down. When a teacher or student asks or answers a question during a lecture, write it down. You can always look up the correct answer later, but how the other person said it may be more understandable to you than what is actually written in the textbook. Be prepared by creating questions before the class. You do this by going over course materials the day before. This will give you time to write questions down about any information you are not understanding. If English is your second language, slow down and take your time. It isn't important to speak as fast as the other English-speaking students do. Just speak slowly and clearly, and concentrate more on making sure your pronunciation is understandable. Ask one question at a time. Even students who are raised in the U.S. often will ask 2 questions at once, leaving more room for one of the questions to be forgotten in favor of the first one that was asked.